Good morning, my name is Helen from the Freshwater Research Centre. I'm going to be starting today's session about the Freshwater Biodiversity Information System. I'll introduce you to this user-driven system for mobilising, visualising and reporting on biodiversity data in South Africa. Monitoring, managing and protecting freshwater ecosystems is obviously critical, and being able to detect ecosystem changes such as losing unique biodiversity and important ecosystem services requires access to reliable data. In the past, there's been limited regional and national capacity for managing freshwater biodiversity data, and legacy and existing systems tend to be isolated, difficult to access, and or not well maintained. And this really prompted the development of the Freshwater Biodiversity Information System, or FBIS for short. Just by way of background, the main funder for the project was the JRS Biodiversity Foundation, together with SANBI. The project started in August 2016 with a planning grant, followed by a 3-year technical grant, which ended in December 2020, and a major milestone was the release of FBIS version 3 in July 2020. We've got follow-on funding for another 3-year project to extend the range and the type of data served in FBIS from 21 to 24. The key activities in FBIS are obviously first and foremost to design, develop and refine the information system, which obviously is already in version 3 phase, to mobilize and import baseline biodiversity data into FBIS, to train individuals and key organizations to become data providers, and in this way expand the range of data served and the geographic range of the data. Lastly, to integrate the outputs, especially the data of FBIS, into freshwater decision-making frameworks and pipelines. The URL is the Freshwater Biodiversity Data, biodiversity.org. And it's a system. This is the landing page for tracking change in South Africa's freshwater biodiversity. The version 3 has 4 taxonomic groups: fish, invertebrates, adult odonates, and algae. What I'd like to do now is talk to the 5 main data pillars of FBIS, the first of which, and which is the primary data currency, is biological or biotic data. This includes both biodiversity data as well as biotic indice data, in this case SASAqS, the South African scoring system, which is an index based on aquatic invertebrates in rivers. Phase 1 of FBIS included mobilizing data for fish, invertebrates and algae in river systems, as well as including adult odonator data brought in from the Virtual Museum's Odonator map. This is a sister project to our project. We trawled the literature, peer-reviewed articles, published reports, theses, mobilized data from legacy databases such as the Rivers database and Biobase, and brought in unpublished data sets. Phase 2 of FBIS will extend the range of data to include amphibians, as well as fish, inverts, plants, and algae in inland wetlands. The second data pillar is really the abiotic data, which comes as companion data to the biological records. This includes physicochemical data, biotope data, as well as morphometric data such as stream width, etc. Phase 2 will expand this to include water temperature time series data specifically for river systems, as well as water quality databases for wetlands. The third pillar is the third-party data. This really refers to data which we harvest from the Global Biodiversity Information Facility, or GBIF for short. So for example, fish records that are published by SASAqS to GBIF are harvested directly from GBIF and brought down into FBIS. We also link to the IUCN Threatened Status database, as well as the Department of Water and Sanitation's water quality database through a sister project inwards. We also link to the MiniSAS citizen science database. It's very important to be able to visualize the biological data, and for this we have what we call context data. This includes a number of spatial layers as well as filters, which allow for the production of maps. And for example, in FBIS phase 1, which was river focused, we included geomorphological zones, provinces, water management areas, and various biodiversity type data, and a host of others. In phase 2, because it's wetland driven, we'll be focusing on the national wetlands map, veg maps, and switching out the land cover, as well as bringing in some spatial layers which are relevant to the thermal module, which we will also be developing in phase 2. Lastly, all occurrence records in FBIS have associated with the metadata, and in the background of this is a knowledge database with downloadable PDFs, DOIs, and URLs to links to all data sources. These 5 pillars together form the Freshwater Biodiversity Information System and are available to you, the freshwater data users. In terms of system design and functionality, the FBIS was very strongly informed by the data and reporting needs of the key end user groups, including water resource managers, biodiversity and conservation managers and planners, scientific researchers, as well as environmental consultants. And we ran a series of workshops where we discussed the needs of the end users and used this to inform both the design of the system and the data mobilized in the first phase. Okay, I'd like to take you to a quick guided tour of FBIS. This is the map where you search for your data and point out some key design functionality. The first is we've included a spatial interface with the ability to switch on various layers, visualizing the data. We've included filters for selecting subsets of the data, and we've included overview dashboards for summarizing the data. Each overview dashboard enables the drilling down to a detailed dashboard, which very briefly to date, we've developed 4 of these. The first is a taxon dashboard, which gives you details about a specific species. The second is a single site dashboard. The third is a multi-site dashboard. And the 4th is a SASAqS dashboard. Just to drill down a little bit in some detail and point out the key features, which we've tried to keep fairly standardized throughout the dashboards. The first is your filter history that you've applied to get the output, a distribution map, geocontext data, which is information specific to that site, link to site data, so you can drill down to the original data, information on species occurrences, photographs when available, a series of charts and graphs, abiotic data when available, as well as metadata. Drilling down further into some of these graphs, just for example, this is a fish multi-site query for fish distribution data, where we've broken down the data of fish records by origin, endemism, conservation status, sampling method, and biotype, and provided it in the form of pie charts. Another example is occurrence records by time, in this case broken down by endemism and conservation status. Moving on to some SASAqS data, you can see on the left the overview panel, which gives you geocontext data specific to that site based on its georeference, for example, what catchment it's in, what management area it's in, etc. We've created some visual graphs, in this case SASAqS charts, which are color-coded, linked to the ecological categories, and we also provide information on the proportion of sensitive to tolerance taxa. And of course, the metadata table. Throughout this process, we focused very hard on developing a core group of people and organizations that take ownership of FBIS, and partnerships really have been key through the development of FBIS previous phase, and we envisage going forward into the future. We're very grateful to all the organizations that have been involved to date. I'd like to end with a word of thanks to our primary funder, the JRS Biodiversity Foundation, as well as to Sanbi, the co-funder, and for their guidance and partnering on the project from the get-go. I'd like to say thank you to all my colleagues in the Freshwater Research Centre that have worked tirelessly to mobilize data, and to Cartoza, who have been the lead developers on the project. And lastly, thanks to Jeremy Shelton for permission to use his beautiful photographs. Thank you very much.